Something is changing in X4 right now, and it would be very easy to perhaps underestimate what that actually means. Now, if you look in at the 9.0 update as a surface level way, what you'll see is exactly what you'd expect from a major update. Combat changes, ship balancing, command improvements, economy adjustments, and a lot of feature work, a lot of reworking, and a lot of tuning as well, and all of that is certainly true. And if you stop there, I think you're going to miss the bigger point. What 9.0 really shows is that Egosoft are no longer just expanding X4. They're making its simulation easier to feel, easier to read, as well as easier to command, and perhaps most importantly of all, they're making it easier to believe that this is a living, breathing universe. This comes across very clearly in three distinct places: combat, fleet control, as well as the economy itself. So let's start with combat. For the longest time then, one of the strange things about X4 was that it could stage these absolutely enormous, massive battles, and I'm sure you've seen them. Huge ships, multiple factions, dozens of moving parts, large fleets, massive stations, all of the spectacle that you could really want and desire from a large-scale space sim. But the problem was, the combat itself didn't always feel convincing. And that's not a criticism just for the sake of it. What I'm trying to say here is that the reality, at times, when you're actually inside the games in these scenarios, well, the combat could look a little bit, shall we say, awkward. It could feel indecisive, and sometimes it gave the impression that whilst the scale was absolutely there, the behaviour underneath the system, the behaviour underneath all that scale just wasn't as clear as it should be, or perhaps could be. And that meant you could see the big battle happening, but you couldn't always feel like the battle itself was behaving in a way that immediately felt readable or even believable. And Egosoft themselves have definitely thought about this because they're very clearly targeting the field of combat itself. The new update has a turret accuracy being improved, destroyers making more use of their main batteries, AI aiming has been adjusted to feel somewhat more organic, we've got missile interception that's had some improvement, as well as new things such as torpedoes now being targetable. And then, of course, capital ship movement has also been reworked. Altogether, what this suggests to me is not simply combat has changed that you could perhaps whack a label on. It suggests something far deeper, something more specific. It's that Egosoft are trying to make combat easier to understand at scale, like they're trying to make it feel more cohesive. And that really does matter. It's very important in a game like this, in a game of this scale. The reason for that is very simple. When you're standing back and watching the combat, it should be very clear which side is gaining the upper hand. And the 9.0 update seems to be pushing the game in exactly that direction, away from opacity and being somewhat hard to read, and then becoming far more clearer. The second big focus for this update that's going to make the galaxy feel much more alive is fleet control and player agency. So a game that can simulate an entire universe like this one, if players can't meaningfully command the universe itself, they can't command their empire, then the fantasy really does break down, and that's entirely understandable. We've seen a lot of people say all this, a lot of the problem there comes down to the UI. It's a great game, but the UI really is a problem. It doesn't matter how deep the game is, if you're interacting it with in a way that feels like you're wrestling with it and fighting with it, then it doesn't feel like you're exerting control over that galaxy or over your empire. And I think it's fair to say that's a problem that X4 has always had. 9.0 then is going to change this. It's going to improve upon this because Egosoft are making a variety of changes here. To start with, they're going to be introducing priority orders. And this is coming alongside other improvements to information clarity, targeting, as well as the general command layer around the player. And again, I want to repeat what I said at the start of the video. It's very easy to jump in and see these as quality of life changes, but I really feel that undersells what Egosoft are doing here. These changes are actually far bigger. They make the game more responsive to the player, they make control more immediate, and they make the command layer feel that much more in step with the scale of the simulation itself, and that is a very big deal indeed. The reason for that should be coming quite clear. Once you connect together an improved fleet management and you can manage your fleet that much more cleanly, once combat becomes more readable and, well, the ship behaviour started making more sense, well, X4 itself starts to feel less like a collection of separate systems that are not quite connected that well, to a full unified simulation, and there we can underscore the idea of a living, breathing universe. And that quite naturally brings us on to the third element, which is the economy. And this might actually be the most important part of all of this. So whilst combat and control are certainly very visible parts of the experience, these are all the parts that we directly engage with as we're playing X4 on a day-to-day basis. The economy is the thing that makes the entire world continue to function outside of the player's immediate presence. And whilst we interact with the economy, of course we do, because this is an X series game, it's still something that's always ever present behind the scenes. So an example of what's going on here, Egosoft are introducing ways for new, smaller, very specific wrecks to be recycled into a new resource. And they're also changing the way that resource areas behave after depletion. Now you might think that sounds exactly like something only dedicated X4 players are going to care about. But the point here is that it really goes to the heart of what makes a simulation like this feel alive, a galaxy becoming more living and more breathing. It's the difference between an economy that just exists as an abstract layer and an economy that feels a part of the world you're living in. In short, it makes the economy more visible in the world around you. So this is where I think, at least I hope, the bigger picture should start coming to focus for you as I've been listing these things off. What I'm trying to say is that these are not isolated fixes, they're not just quality of life updates. If we take all of these distinct elements and look at them together, what's happening is they're all heading in the same general direction. We're getting combat that's more readable, command becoming more immediate and accessible, as well as the economy becoming more grounded in the world around you. And what this means is, well, it really tells us something about a lot of other games, in fact, because many games confuse immersion with, presentation, don't they? They kind of assume that immersion is all about the visual fidelity of the game or atmosphere. They assume that the game can be about beautiful ships or giant star systems or ship interiors, things such as high-end quality dramatic music or anything else that creates the appearance of life. And yeah, it's true that all these things certainly help and they do matter, perhaps more than many people appreciate. They'll certainly add to the experience of a game. But the point is, the thing I'm trying to say here is that none of these things here by themselves create a living universe. A living universe ultimately comes from consequence. And that means a universe where systems interact with each other in ways that are meaningful. A world where fleets are not just props floating about. A world where economies are not just numbers in the background like a spreadsheet. I'm sure then you can start to see why all of these sort of changes make a game like X4 even more compelling than it already was. If I was to sum this up in a much more simpler way, it would be that the problem with X4 has never really been about ambition. That's never been Egosoft's problem whatsoever. The problem has been friction, making things a little bit more harder and a little bit more difficult than they actually need to be. And this is where version 9.0 does come in. It's not turning X4 into a brand new, completely different game. It's actually giving us the game that X4 has always needed to be, that it's always kind of wanted to be. And what's more, with Egosoft building this as a new foundation for the game, it opens up future possibilities, allowing them to go in ever new directions with a new, more solid foundation. Because once you've got a solid foundation, you can build bigger and bolder things, can't you? Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments section below, because I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching this video all the way through. There is another one on the screen right here if you want to check that out. Do take care, and I'll catch you next time.